My name is Olivia Morgan, and last month I learned that the most powerful form of revenge isn't shouting, crying, or throwing plates across a room. It isn't even a public showdown where everyone finally sees the truth. It's quieter than that. It's a signature at the bottom of a contract. It's a clean transfer of funds. It's a single piece of paper that changes everything. Growing up, my family always accused me of being too quiet, too passive, too willing to let life happen to me. But what they didn't understand is that silence isn't weakness. Silence can be strategy. And when the moment is right, silence can be the loudest answer of all. Last month, I inherited my grandmother's house, a charming Victorian worth around $750,000 in one of the most competitive neighborhoods in Palo Alto. A house filled with memories of love and safety, the only place where I'd ever truly felt seen. My parents and my younger sister, Chloe, didn't see it that way. To them, the house was a cash cow, a stepping stone for Chloe's bright future. Within days of Grandma's funeral, they began circling me like vultures. They didn't just suggest that I sell it, they practically demanded it. And when I didn't agree right away, they escalated to threats. "Sell the house and split the money, or you're out of this family," my father texted me one night. But what they didn't know, what they never imagined, was that I'd already sold it 3 days earlier, and not to some random buyer either, to someone who would change everything. Then they found out who was now standing in that house. My mother didn't just gasp, she screamed. Before I explain how my family's plan to strip me of my inheritance backfired spectacularly, I need to take you back to where it all started. Because this isn't just about a house. It's about decades of favoritism, manipulation, and one daughter who was always told she was strong enough to do without. So grab a coffee, or maybe a glass of wine, and settle in. If you've ever been the forgotten child, the family scapegoat, or the one expected to carry everyone else's burdens, this story might sound familiar. In most families, being the firstborn comes with a certain kind of reverence, the trailblazer, the leader, the one who gets celebrated for every first. Not in mine. From the very beginning, my younger sister Chloe stole the spotlight. She was beautiful, even as a baby, with big green eyes and a magnetic laugh that seemed to charm everyone she met. By the time she was 5, she was performing in local dance recitals, earning praise from everyone around us. My parents, Linda and Charles Morgan, practically built their lives around her talents. Meanwhile, I was just there. When I started school, I remember proudly showing my dad a perfect report card, straight A's across the board. He gave it a single glance before asking if I'd seen Chloe's latest dance routine. "Your sister's really got something special," he said with a gleam in his eye. My achievement was treated like an obligation fulfilled. Hers were treated like miracles. By the time I was 12, the imbalance was glaring. Chloe was enrolled at a prestigious private academy that cost more per year than most people's mortgages. My parents justified it by saying she needed the right environment to nurture her artistic gifts. And me, I rode the public school bus at 7 a.m., rain or shine. Whenever I questioned the difference, my mother would sigh and pat my hand. "Olivia, you're so independent. You don't need as much as Chloe does." What she really meant was, Chloe deserves more. You don't. The older we got, the more the favoritism shaped our lives. When Chloe wanted ballet lessons, she got a private tutor and custom-made shoes. When I wanted to join the debate team, my father balked at the $200 participation fee. The same week he told me we couldn't afford it, Chloe received a brand new MacBook for her creative projects. Price tag, $2,500. I learned to stop asking for things. Instead, I got a part-time job at the local library, saved my own money, and poured myself into academics. My grades weren't just good, they were exceptional. But my parents barely noticed. Whenever they did speak about me, it was usually to highlight my reliability compared to Chloe's free spirit. "You know your sister is delicate," my mother would say. "You're the strong one." I didn't feel strong. I felt invisible. There was one person, though, who never treated me like an afterthought: Grandma Eleanor Whitfield. Grandma's house, the very one at the center of this whole saga, was my sanctuary. When my parents were busy shuttling Chloe to competitions or attending endless recitals, Grandma would pick me up for weekends filled with homemade cookies, quiet reading sessions, and genuine conversations. She never compared me to Chloe. She never made me feel like less. To Grandma, I wasn't the strong one or the reliable one. I was just Olivia. One night, when I was 16, I asked her the question that had been eating at me for years. Why do they love her more? Grandma held me close, her familiar lavender perfume wrapping around me like armor. "They don't love her more, sweetheart," she said softly. "They love themselves more. And Chloe reflects who they wish they were. Dazzling, adored, the star of the show. You, my dear Olivia, you reflect who they actually are. Hardworking, practical, unadorned. And that terrifies them." Those words carried me through the next decade like a secret weapon. While Chloe floated through life on a cushion of parental praise and financial support, I worked. I put myself through college, juggling 3 part-time jobs, while Chloe found herself by changing majors 6 times. I graduated with honors in accounting. She barely managed to graduate at all. Guess which one of us got a lavish party and professional photographer to celebrate? Not me. Life has a way of moving forward, whether you're ready or not. Just when I felt like I was finally finding my footing, settling into a steady job, saving money for the first time in my life, I got the call that shattered me. Grandma Eleanor had passed away peacefully in her sleep. I remember staring at my phone, the words, "I'm so sorry, Olivia," from the hospice nurse, blurring as tears filled my eyes. Peacefully. I hated that word. It felt too soft for what I was feeling. Grandma wasn't just my grandmother. She was my anchor, my safe harbor in a stormy sea. Without her, I felt untethered, alone. Worse, I knew exactly how my family would treat her passing, not as a profound loss, but as an opportunity. The day of the funeral was a blur of black clothing, polite condolences, and my parents playing the role of grieving children for the benefit of Grandma's friends and neighbors. My mother, Linda, dabbed at her perfectly made-up eyes with a silk handkerchief, careful not to smudge her mascara. My father, Charles, gave solemn handshakes, his voice grave and low, as if he were auditioning for the part of dutiful son. I watched them both with a hollow ache in my chest. Grandma deserved genuine grief, not a performance. The only real moment of comfort came when Mrs. Kim, Grandma's next-door neighbor, hugged me tightly. "She loved you so much, Olivia," she whispered. "We all saw it. You were her pride and joy." Her words were a balm I didn't know I needed. Chloe, of course, was in full drama mode, crying loudly, clinging to our parents, making sure every single person noticed her devastation. It wasn't grief, it was a show. As we stood by the graveside, the final notes of Amazing Grace fading into the cool spring air, I silently promised Grandma that I'd honor her legacy, even if no one else understood what that truly meant. 2 days later, while I was back at my tiny studio apartment, my phone rang. The caller ID read Harper & Associates Law Offices. My heart skipped. Grandma had mentioned her lawyer, attorney Janet Harper, before, but we'd never spoken directly. "Olivia Morgan?" The voice on the other end was calm and professional. "Yes, that's me. This is Janet Harper, your grandmother's attorney. I'd like to schedule a time for you and your family to come in for the reading of her will." The words hit me like a physical blow. Of course there would be a will, but I hadn't let myself think about what it might say. Sure, I managed. "When?" "Thursday at 3 p.m. Does that work for everyone?" It didn't matter if it worked for everyone. My parents would make sure they were there, especially if there was money involved. "Yes," I said softly, "I'll be there." When I arrived at Harper & Associates, my parents and Chloe were already seated in the conference room. My mother gave me a tight-lipped smile. "You're late," she said, even though I wasn't. Chloe was wearing a black designer dress, morning chic if there were such a thing, and scrolling through her phone like she was bored. I sat down quietly, clutching my purse like a lifeline. Attorney Harper entered with a warm but businesslike smile. "Thank you all for coming. I know this is a difficult time. Let's go through Eleanor Whitfield's final wishes." My father sat up straighter, like a king about to receive his due. I felt my stomach churn. Harper read through a few small bequests, Grandma's jewelry to a cousin, some charitable donations to local organizations. Then she cleared her throat. And finally, she said, looking directly at me, the property located at 427 Maple Street, including the house and all contents within, is hereby bequeathed solely to Olivia Morgan. For a moment, there was silence. Pure, stunned silence. Then my mother gasped. "Excuse me?" Harper continued smoothly. "The title transfer documents have already been prepared. Upon completion of probate, Olivia will have full ownership rights." My father's face turned red. "This must be a mistake," he said. "Eleanor wouldn't just give the house to one grandchild." Harper adjusted her glasses. "There is no mistake. Mrs. Whitfield was very clear in her intentions. She specified that no other family members are to have decision-making power regarding this property." I sat frozen, my heart pounding. Grandma left it? To me? All of it? I looked up at Harper, my throat tight. Why me?" Harper's expression softened. She said you understood the value of that home, not just financially, but emotionally. She trusted you to care for it. My eyes stung. Of course she did. Grandma had always known how much that house meant to me. It wasn't just a building. It was where I'd learned to bake cookies on Saturday mornings, where she'd taught me how to tend her rose garden, where she'd whispered wisdom to me when the rest of the world seemed death. It was the only place where I had ever felt truly safe. My mother slammed her hand on the table. "This isn't right. It's not fair to Chloe." Chloe perked up, flipping her hair dramatically. "Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you don't deserve something, Olivia, but Grandma always said she wanted us to share things." "She did not," I snapped before I could stop myself. My voice came out sharper than intended, but I didn't care. "She told me once that my parents would try to take what was mine. She said, 'Don't let them.'" The room went still. My father leaned forward, his tone icy. "Olivia, listen to me carefully. That house has significant market value. You can't handle something like this on your own. We'll help you sell it, and then we'll divide the proceeds equally. That's the only fair thing to do." My chest tightened. I knew this playbook by heart. First persuasion, then guilt, then outright threats. "It's not yours to sell," Harper interjected firmly. "Legally, the property belongs to Olivia. She alone has the authority to decide what to do with it." My mother's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." I left the meeting with my head spinning. The Maple Street house wasn't just real estate to me. It was the garden where Grandma taught me patience and care. The porch where we'd sipped lemonade on hot summer evenings. The sunlit kitchen where I'd felt loved and valued in a way my parents had never managed. And now, it was my future. Owning that house meant no more rent increases, no more living paycheck to paycheck in a cramped studio apartment with mold in the bathroom and neighbors who argued at all hours. It also meant a 5-minute commute to my new accounting job, the very same company where Chloe had recently been promoted to marketing manager. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Chloe saw the house as a prize to flaunt, I saw it as stability, a chance to finally build a life on my terms. But deep down, I knew my family wouldn't let this go. In their eyes, what was mine had always been negotiable. And this time, I wasn't sure what they'd be willing to do to take it from me. I barely had time to breathe after the will reading before the storm began. It started with one phone call, then 2, then dozens. By the end of the first week, my phone was lighting up so often that I turned off notifications, only to have Chloe switch to texting me through every social media platform she could think of. They weren't subtle about their intentions. The first call came from my mother. Her voice was sugar-sweet, dripping with artificial warmth. "Olivia, honey, we've been talking, and we think it's time we all sit down and figure out a plan for Grandma's house." "A plan?" I asked cautiously. "Yes, sweetheart. You've never owned property before, and it's a lot of responsibility. Taxes, maintenance, upkeep, it can be overwhelming." I bit back a laugh. My entire career revolved around balancing numbers and handling budgets. I was literally a certified public accountant, but apparently I couldn't possibly handle paying property taxes. "What are you suggesting, Mom?" Her tone shifted, a touch of steel beneath the honey. We think the best course of action would be to sell the house now while the market is hot. Then we can split the money evenly between you and Chloe. That way, everyone benefits. There it was, the word we, as if this were a group decision and not my legal inheritance. I appreciate your concern, I said carefully, but I'm not interested in selling. A sharp inhale. Olivia, don't be selfish. I'm not being selfish. I'm simply following Grandma's wishes. She left the house to me. There was a pause long enough for me to picture my mother's face turning red. Well, she said finally, we'll talk about this later. Click. Chloe's approach was softer, at least at first. She called me late one night, her voice trembling with manufactured tears. Liv, I can't believe you'd do this to me. Do what to you, Chloe? Keep the house. You already have an apartment, and you don't even care about entertaining guests or, hosting events. Meanwhile, Brad and I are trying to plan our future, and with rent prices so high, she sniffled dramatically, we'll never be able to afford a place like that. You live in a luxury apartment our parents pay for, I reminded her. That's temporary, she shot back. Besides, I work so hard. I deserve a real home. Grandma would want me to have this house. My patience snapped. Grandma didn't leave it to you, Chloe. She left it to me. That was her choice. Her sobs turned into full-blown wailing. You're ruining everything. I can't believe you're being so cold. Cold. That was the word they always used when I didn't bow to Chloe's needs. I ended the call before she could say more. When guilt didn't work, they escalated to the next level, an all-out family intervention. Texts started arriving from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Aunt Carol, family means sharing, Olivia. Don't let money tear you apart. Cousin Megan, think about Chloe. She's fragile. You're the strong one. Uncle Dennis, this house should bring you together, not drive you apart. The wording was suspiciously similar, as if my mother had sent them a script. I could practically hear her voice in the messages. Every single one framed me as the villain, the greedy, heartless older sister hoarding property while poor, delicate Chloe suffered. But the message that hurt the most came from my father. It arrived one Thursday evening as I was eating takeout alone in my cramped apartment. Dad, either you agree to sell the house and split the proceeds, or you are no longer part of this family. No holidays, no birthdays, no contact with future grandchildren. Your choice. I stared at the screen, my hand trembling. No contact with future grandchildren? They didn't even have grandchildren yet. This was emotional blackmail at its finest. For a brief, painful moment, I considered giving in. I imagined a quiet life free of conflict, even if it meant sacrificing what was rightfully mine. But then I pictured Grandma's face, the way she'd looked at me across the chessboard in her cozy living room, the way she'd whispered, "Never let them see your next move." My jaw hardened. No, not this time. I typed back a single sentence. Thanks for making my decision so clear. Then I turned off my phone. 2 days later, my parents showed up unannounced at my apartment. I opened the door to find my mother clutching a folder and my father looking grim. "May we come in?" she asked in a tone that wasn't really a question. Reluctantly, I stepped aside. They didn't sit. Instead, my mother spread a series of glossy real estate pamphlets across my tiny kitchen table. These are listings from Mrs. Patterson, the best realtor in the area. She already has buyers lined up for the Maple Street house. I folded my arms. You made an appointment with a realtor without asking me? We're trying to help you, my father snapped. You don't understand how big this responsibility is. I understand perfectly, I said evenly, and I've made my decision. My mother's lips thinned. Don't be unreasonable, Olivia. Chloe's starting her new role at work. She'll need a proper space for entertaining clients. That apartment of hers is far too small. Then maybe she should buy her own house, I said coldly. The silence that followed was electric. Finally, my father spoke, his voice low and dangerous. You've always been difficult, but this is unforgivable. After they left, I sat alone in the dim light of my apartment, surrounded by silence. For years, I'd played the role of the strong one, the dependable, quiet, self-sufficient daughter who asked for nothing and received even less. But now, for the first time, I had something they wanted, something they couldn't take without my consent, and I wasn't about to give it to them. Still, I knew my parents well enough to realize they wouldn't stop. They never did. If I wanted to keep Grandma's house, my house, I'd need a plan. And as fate would have it, that plan arrived in the form of a text message from an unexpected ally. The night my parents stormed out of my apartment, I sat on my bed staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning. I knew they weren't done. When it came to Chloe, they never were. I was still replaying my father's ultimatum when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't check it, assuming it was another guilt-ridden text or tearful message from Chloe. But the name on the screen froze me in place. Unknown number. Olivia, this is Marcus Reed. I heard through mutual professional channels that you might be looking to sell a property on Maple Street. I'm very interested. Can we talk? My breath caught in my throat. Marcus Reed, the CEO of Luminate Tech, the very company where both Chloe and I worked. It took me a moment to process what I was reading. Marcus wasn't just any CEO. He was a legend in Silicon Valley, sharp, visionary, and surprisingly down-to-earth for a man who'd built a tech empire before turning 35. I'd met him briefly at a company mixer last year, nothing more than a polite handshake and small talk. But Chloe worshipped him. She'd been bragging for weeks about how Marcus himself had approved her recent promotion to marketing manager. In her mind, Marcus was practically a demigod, and now he wanted to buy my house? The universe clearly had a sense of humor. I hesitated for only a moment before replying. Me. Hi, Marcus. Yes, the property is mine. It's a sensitive situation, though. Can we keep this confidential for now? His response was immediate. Marcus, absolutely. I understand completely. Would you be available to talk tonight? My pulse quickened. I typed back a quick yes and gave him my address. An hour later, Marcus arrived, casual but polished in dark jeans and a perfectly tailored blazer. When I opened the door, he gave me a warm smile that was somehow both professional and friendly. Olivia, he said, shaking my hand firmly. It's good to see you again. You too, I replied, still slightly stunned that this was happening. He glanced around my modest studio apartment, but didn't comment on its size. Instead, he got straight to the point. I'll be direct, Marcus said, sitting down at my small table. Luminate has been considering opening a satellite office for the marketing team, a more relaxed, creative environment away from the main corporate campus. Your grandmother's property is in the perfect location for what we need. My mind raced. You want to turn the house into an office? Yes, the layout, the neighborhood, the proximity to our headquarters, it's ideal. Plus, we want a residential feel to encourage collaboration. He paused, studying me carefully. But I also know it has sentimental value to you. I don't want to pressure you. I thought about Grandma's garden, her warm kitchen, the porch where we'd spent countless evenings. And then I thought about my parents and Chloe circling like vultures, ready to tear me apart to claim what wasn't theirs. What kind of offer are we talking about? I asked carefully. Marcus didn't hesitate. $800,000, $20,000 above market value. And, he added, I'd be willing to include a long-term lease agreement so you could continue living there if you wanted. I blanked. Wait, you'd let me live there? Of course, Marcus said. We'd renovate the downstairs into office space, but the upstairs could remain a private apartment. It would give you stability and keep the property's legacy intact. It was like Grandma herself had arranged this moment, a way to secure my future while keeping the house safe from my family. Slowly, a plan began to take shape in my mind, a plan so perfect, so poetic, that I almost laughed out loud. Marcus, I said, leaning forward, we have a deal, but there's one condition. He raised an eyebrow, which is, no one, and I mean no one, can know about this until I say so, especially my family. His smile turned knowing. Understood. Discretion is part of my job description. The next 3 days were a blur of contracts, signatures, and legal filings. Attorney Harper handled everything flawlessly, ensuring every document was airtight. Marcus's team moved with quiet efficiency, recording the sale with the county and transferring the funds directly to my account. When I saw the balance for the first time, tears filled my eyes. For the first time in my life, I had real financial security, not just survival, stability. As Harper handed me the final set of papers, she gave me a rare smile. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said softly. I nodded, my throat tight. I hope so. Meanwhile, my family had no idea what was happening. They were too busy plotting their intervention. On the fourth day, I got a call from my mother, her tone brimming with false cheer. "Olivia, sweetheart, we've scheduled a meeting with Mrs. Patterson, the realtor I mentioned. We'll all meet at Attorney Harper's office this weekend to finalize the sale." "The sale?" I repeated flatly. "Yes, it's time to stop dragging this out. Chloe's future depends on this house." Chloe's voice piped up in the background. "Liv, I've already started looking at furniture. Brad and I found the cutest sectional for the living room." I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly. They were so certain, so sure they'd win. "Fine," I said finally. "Let's meet." My mother sounded relieved. "Good. Saturday at noon. Don't be late." Unknown number. "Olivia, this is Marcus Reed. I heard through mutual professional channels that you might be looking to sell a property on Maple Street. I'm very interested. Can we talk?" My breath caught in my throat. Marcus Reed, the CEO of Luminate Tech, the very company where both Chloe and I worked. It took me a moment to process what I was reading. Marcus wasn't just any CEO. He was a legend in Silicon Valley, sharp, visionary, and surprisingly down-to-earth for a man who'd built a tech empire before turning 35. I'd met him briefly at a company mixer last year, nothing more than a polite handshake and small talk. But Chloe worshipped him. She'd been bragging for weeks about how Marcus himself had approved her recent promotion to marketing manager. In her mind, Marcus was practically a demigod. And now he wanted to buy my house? The universe clearly had a sense of humor. I hesitated for only a moment before replying. Me. "Hi, Marcus. Yes, the property is mine. It's a sensitive situation, though. Can we keep this confidential for now?" His response was immediate. "Marcus, absolutely. I understand completely. Would you be available to talk tonight?" My pulse quickened. I typed back a quick yes and gave him my address. An hour later, Marcus arrived, casual but polished in dark jeans and a perfectly tailored blazer. When I opened the door, he gave me a warm smile that was somehow both professional and friendly. "Olivia," he said, shaking my hand firmly, "it's good to see you again." "You too," I replied, still slightly stunned that this was happening. He glanced around my modest studio apartment, but didn't comment on its size. Instead, he got straight to the point. "I'll be direct," Marcus said, sitting down at my small table. "Luminate has been considering opening a satellite office for the marketing team, a more relaxed, creative environment away from the main corporate campus. Your grandmother's property is in the perfect location for what we need." My mind raced. "You want to turn the house into an office?" "Yes, the layout, the neighborhood, the proximity to our headquarters, it's ideal. Plus, we want a residential feel to encourage collaboration." He paused, studying me carefully. "But I also know it has sentimental value to you. I don't want to pressure you." I thought about Grandma's garden, her warm kitchen, the porch where we'd spent countless evenings. And then I thought about my parents and Chloe circling like vultures, ready to tear me apart to claim what wasn't theirs. "What kind of offer are we talking about?" I asked carefully. Marcus didn't hesitate. $800,000, $20,000 above market value. And, he added, I'd be willing to include a long-term lease agreement so you could continue living there if you wanted. I blanked. Wait, you'd let me live there? Of course, Marcus said. We'd renovate the downstairs into office space, but the upstairs could remain a private apartment. It would give you stability and keep the property's legacy intact. It was like Grandma herself had arranged this moment, a way to secure my future while keeping the house safe from my family. Slowly, a plan began to take shape in my mind, a plan so perfect, so poetic, that I almost laughed out loud. Marcus, I said, leaning forward, we have a deal, but there's one condition. He raised an eyebrow, which is? No one, and I mean no one, can know about this until I say so, especially my family. His smile turned knowing. Understood. Discretion is part of my job description. The next 3 days were a blur of contracts, signatures, and legal filings. Attorney Harper handled everything flawlessly, ensuring every document was airtight. Marcus's team moved with quiet efficiency, recording the sale with the county and transferring the funds directly to my account. When I saw the balance for the first time, tears filled my eyes. For the first time in my life, I had real financial security, not just survival, stability. As Harper handed me the final set of papers, she gave me a rare smile. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said softly. I nodded, my throat tight. I hope so. Meanwhile, my family had no idea what was happening. They were too busy plotting their intervention. On the 4th day, I got a call from my mother, her tone brimming with false cheer. "Olivia, sweetheart, we've scheduled a meeting with Mrs. Patterson, the realtor I mentioned. We'll all meet at Attorney Harper's office this weekend to finalize the sale." "The sale?" I repeated flatly. "Yes, it's time to stop dragging this out. Chloe's future depends on this house." Chloe's voice piped up in the background. "Liv, I've already started looking at furniture. Brad and I found the cutest sectional for the living room." I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly. They were so certain, so sure they'd win. "Fine," I said finally. "Let's meet." My mother sounded relieved. "Good. Saturday at noon. Don't be late." Legally, Olivia had every right to sell. The house was solely hers to do with as she pleased. My father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "This is fraud, manipulation. You took advantage of her." Marcus chuckled lightly, a sound that sent a ripple of fear through the group. "Mr. Morgan, I paid $800,000, which is above market value. If anyone was taken advantage of here, it was me." Chloe stumbled forward, mascara already streaking down her cheeks. "Mr. Reed, please, this house, it's supposed to be mine. My career depends on it." Marcus's expression remained perfectly neutral. "Your career is in excellent shape, Chloe. In fact, it's about to take an exciting new direction." She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "We're converting this property into a satellite office for the marketing team," Marcus explained, his tone all business. "The front rooms will serve as collaborative workspaces. The garden area will be ideal for client events." Chloe's knees visibly buckled. You're putting my office here?" she whispered. "Correct," Marcus said. "Your team will report here starting Monday at 9 a.m. sharp." The sound that came out of Chloe's mouth was half sob, half scream. "And Olivia," Marcus continued, turning to me with a small smile, "will continue residing upstairs per our lease agreement." My mother staggered back as if struck. "You mean to tell me she's going to live here while Chloe works here?" "That's right," Marcus confirmed smoothly. "Completely separate spaces, of course, but under the same roof." As voices rose, I noticed curtains twitching in nearby houses. Soon, neighbors began gathering on the sidewalk, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Kim appeared with her phone out, clearly recording. Mr. Peterson leaned on his fence, grinning like he'd been waiting for this show all year. My mother noticed and hissed at me. "Olivia, this is humiliating." "No," I said, my voice calm and clear, carrying across the yard. "What's humiliating is trying to bully me into giving up what Grandma left me and failing." "You deceitful little—" my father began, but Marcus cut him off sharply. "Careful, Mr. Morgan. You're currently standing on my property. Unless Olivia invites you in, you're trespassing." My father's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My mother grabbed his arm, her fury barely contained. "This isn't over," she spat. "We'll contest this sale. We'll go to court." Attorney Harper calmly opened her briefcase and pulled out a neat stack of documents. "The title transfer is complete, notarized, and filed with Santa Clara County. The statute of limitations for contesting the will has already expired. You have no legal standing here." Marcus added, And I have the wire transfer receipt right here if you'd like proof of payment. Mrs. Patterson, realizing her role was over, quietly slipped away toward her car. Chloe turned on me, eyes wild. "You planned this," she hissed. "You and Marcus, you set me up to fail." "I planned to protect myself," I said evenly. "That's it. You've ruined my life," she screamed. "How am I supposed to work here knowing you're upstairs watching me?" "Consider it a professional challenge," Marcus said mildly. "Of course, if you'd prefer to request a transfer, that's always an option." The unspoken implication hung in the air. A transfer would be a demotion. Chloe's mouth snapped shut. My mother made one last desperate attempt. "Olivia, we are your family. Blood is thicker than water. You can't choose strangers over us." I met her gaze, my voice steady. "No, Mom, I'm not choosing strangers over family. I'm choosing myself over people who never chose me." The crowd of neighbors erupted into murmurs of approval. Mrs. Kim even clapped. Marcus stepped forward, his tone final. "This conversation is over. The property is legally mine. Olivia is my tenant. Chloe is my employee. Any further interference will result in legal action." As if on cue, a moving truck pulled up. Workers began unloading sleek office furniture, desks, chairs, whiteboards. The transformation was already underway. Chloe let out another wail, collapsing into my mother's arms. As my parents dragged Chloe back to their SUV, my father shot me one last venomous glare. "You're dead to us," he snarled. I smiled sweetly. "Promise?" They sped away, tires squealing. The neighbors began dispersing, buzzing with gossip. Mrs. Kim caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. For the first time in years, I felt free. Marcus turned to me, his voice softer now. "You okay?" I looked around, at the house, the garden, the people who had witnessed my stand. "I'm better than okay," I said. "I'm home." The house was buzzing with activity for the rest of that weekend. Marcus's team worked like clockwork, transforming Grandma's cozy downstairs rooms into sleek, modern workspaces. The familiar living room where Grandma and I had shared countless chess games now held rows of laptops and ergonomic chairs. Her beloved reading nook was repurposed into a conference area with whiteboards and glass tables. Upstairs, however, remained completely mine, my sanctuary, my furniture, my books, my life, safe and untouched. On Monday morning, the real show began. At 8:58 a.m., a parade of cars filled the street as Luminate's marketing team arrived. Among them, of course, was Chloe. She sat in her car for 5 full minutes before finally getting out, adjusting her blazer and taking a deep, shaky breath. When she glanced up at the second-floor window where I stood sipping coffee, I waved. Her face twisted in fury. From my spot by the window, I watched as the team filed into what had once been Grandma's house, now officially their office. Through the old vents, I could hear snippets of corporate jargon. "Let's brainstorm outreach strategies. We need a collaborative space for this campaign. Chloe, can you give us an update on client engagement numbers?" The irony was delicious. Chloe had fought so hard to take this house from me, and now she'd have to work in it every day. At lunch, she knocked on my door. When I opened it, she didn't step inside. She just stood there, trembling with rage. "This isn't fair," she said, her voice cracking. "What isn't fair?" I asked calmly. "Me living here? You working here?" "You know what I mean. It's psychological torture." "It's not torture," I corrected. "It's consequences." Her eyes blazed. "I'm your sister." "Yes," I agreed, "and that should have meant something to you before you tried to take what Grandma left me." For once, Chloe didn't have a comeback. She spun on her heel and stormed away. Over the next few weeks, Chloe's perfect facade began to crumble. Without constant praise and financial support from our parents, she struggled. Her work was sloppy, her ideas uninspired. Jennifer Wu, the department head, was patient at first, but even patience has limits. One evening, as I watered Grandma's roses in the back garden, Jennifer stopped by on her way out. Olivia, right? She asked politely. Yes, I said, wiping my hands on a towel. How's the team settling in? Jennifer hesitated, then lowered her voice. Honestly, it's been rocky. Chloe's having a hard time. She's not meeting expectations, and I've had to put her on a performance improvement plan. I raised an eyebrow. Really? She's never had to actually work before, has she? Jennifer asked, half joking but mostly serious. No, I admitted, she hasn't. Jennifer sighed. Connections might get someone a job, but they can't do the job for them. I nodded, silently agreeing. 2 months later, Chloe was fired. Marcus called me personally to let me know. Her termination was strictly performance-based, he said. I didn't want you to hear it from anyone else. I appreciate that, I replied. She never asked for help, you know. She just demanded things. There was a pause on the line. You did what you had to do, Olivia. When I hung up, I felt a pang of sadness. Despite everything, Chloe was still my sister. But pity wasn't enough to erase the years of manipulation and cruelty. That evening, my phone rang again. It was my mother. Your sister lost her job today, she said without preamble, her voice sharp with accusation. I know, I said quietly. Marcus called me. This is your fault, she snapped. The stress of working in that house, seeing you every day, it destroyed her. No, Mom. Chloe destroyed her own career by not doing her job. My mother's voice trembled with rage. Family helps family, Olivia. Family sacrifices. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath before answering. You've always preached that, Mom. But let's be honest, family only sacrificed for Chloe. I was expected to give and give, while she took and took. Silence crackled on the line. Then she said, almost pleading, We're your parents. Doesn't that mean anything? It should have, I said softly, but you never acted like it. And then, for the first time in my life, I hung up on her. A few days later, while organizing some old boxes upstairs, I found a small, dusty container tucked away in Grandma's closet. Inside were dozens of letters, each one addressed to me, but never sent. My hands shook as I opened the first envelope. My dearest Olivia, I see the way they dim your light, and it breaks my heart. But I also see the fire in you, a fire they can't extinguish, no matter how hard they try. One day, you'll have a chance to let it burn bright. When that day comes, don't hesitate. Don't feel guilty. Take what's yours and build the life you deserve. All my love, Grandma. Tears blurred my vision as I read her careful handwriting. She'd known. She'd planned for this moment years before it happened. Grandma hadn't just given me a house. She'd given me freedom. As spring turned to summer, life shifted in ways I hadn't expected. My parents sold their own home and moved to Arizona, citing the need for a fresh start. In reality, they were running away, something they'd always been good at. The family group chat disintegrated into chaos before finally going silent. Aunts and uncles picked sides, cousins stopped speaking to one another. It was messy, but it was also strangely liberating. For the first time in my life, I wasn't part of their drama. With the downstairs office moved to a commercial space after Chloe's firing, the house slowly returned to its former tranquility. The corporate buzz faded, replaced by birdsong and the gentle hum of bees in the garden. Every morning, I brewed coffee in Grandma's old kitchen, the scent mingling with the smell of blooming roses. Every evening, I read in her favorite chair, sunlight streaming through the bay window. The garden flourished under my care, just as Grandma had taught me. Mrs. Kim often stopped by for tea, bringing stories about Grandma I'd never heard. The neighbors treated me like family, the kind I'd always wished for. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I stood among the roses, breathing in their sweet scent. Grandma had once told me that a garden is a metaphor for life. If you only let one type of flower grow, eventually the whole garden suffers. Diversity makes it beautiful. Balance makes it thrive. My parents had spent decades cultivating only one flower, Chloe. They'd pruned me down to nothing, believing I'd never bloom on my own. But here I was, growing wild and free. I whispered into the twilight, "Thank you, Grandma, for everything." The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Chloe. "You won. Happy now?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. "I'm free, Chloe. There's a difference." No response came. There didn't need to be one. As the last light of day faded, I sat on the porch Grandma and I had once shared. The house was quiet now, filled with the kind of peace I'd always craved. This wasn't just a victory over my family. It was a victory for the little girl who'd once believed she didn't matter. The best revenge wasn't rage or destruction. It wasn't even justice. It was this: a legally binding contract, a thriving garden, and a life built on my own terms. I smiled, feeling the weight of the past finally lift. "I'm home," I whispered. "For good."